The Galactic Council has declared war on humanity. The announcement echoed in the command dome of Eidolon Station, like someone had just told them it might rain next week. Commander Aisha Tran didn't even flinch. She sat at a table by the panoramic viewport, mid-bite into a beef and sesame flatbread, and barely glanced up. She murmured. Did they at least use gold leaf on the letterhead this time? Rear Admiral Shiren Kim cleared her throat and dropped a data tab on the table. Video transmission. Official. They called it a righteous cleansing, and named you specifically as a symbol of Earth's defiance. Aisha looked impressed. Me? That's sweet. Someone's still watching the old wars. She wiped her hands and tapped the tablet. A sphere of light hovered above it, projecting a sleek alien figure, Chancellor Velker Thorin, the Council's crustiest statesman. His voice boomed in that performative, stilted tone elder species love. Let this transmission stand as final proclamation. The human confederation, by way of arrogance, insubordination, and technological heresy, shall be purged. Your kind's refusal to conform has forced our hand. Aisha raised an eyebrow. Heresy? We stopped worshipping spreadsheets centuries ago. Your stations will fall. Your systems will be isolated. You will return to silence. The transmission ended with the Council's seal, a spiraling Ouroboros of stars. Very dramatic. Very final. Aisha leaned back, her voice dry. They really think that's scary, huh? Shiren crossed her arms. They've mobilized fleets, Commander. 37 Dreadnought-class cruisers, 2 relic carriers, and at least 1 unknown asset en route from the Kion Expanse. That's adorable. When will they arrive? 3 weeks. Maybe 4. Slow burn. Plenty of time to finish lunch, then. Aisha stood, waved her wrist implant toward the viewport. The orbital hollow zoomed into a quiet corner of space, showing the Council's warpath as a red curve snaking toward the galactic rim. Eidolon Station, humanity's central hub, hovered like a dark jewel in the void. Built at the edge of a dormant black hole, it was more than a home. It was a message: we go where others fear to orbit. She turned to Shiren. Schedule a full defense net recon. I want the fleet on soft alert, no flashy moves. Let's not look alarmed. Shiren hesitated. You're not taking this personally? Oh, I'm absolutely offended, Aisha replied, sarcasm sharpening her tone. They picked the slowest ships in the quadrant and think a fancy speech counts as a threat. If I wanted to be insulted, I'd talk to my mother. Shiren smirked, just barely. They probably expect retaliation. That's the point, Aisha said. They want drama. We'll give them confusion. Aisha walked through the station's inner corridor, her stride unhurried. Soldiers and engineers nodded in passing. None looked panicked. In truth, humanity hadn't fought a real war in over a century, not because they couldn't, but because they didn't need to. The last time someone fired on a Terran outpost, the retaliation came in the form of hacked ship controls, disabled propulsion, and an anonymous meme broadcast that said simply, "Don't." In the heart of Eidolon, Aisha entered Command Deck Sigma, a low-lit room pulsing with quiet energy. The station's AI, Morpheus, manifested as a holographic avatar, tall, faceless, draped in shimmering code. I assume you saw the broadcast? Aisha asked, settling into the command seat. Morpheus tilted its head. It was poetically redundant. A combination of threats and historical inaccuracy. Sounds like Velker. Can you analyze their fleet trajectory? A star map bloomed in the air. Their ships maintain ceremonial formation. Probable acceleration factors suggest outdated sublight drives. No sign of quantum transit capability. So they're crawling here, blind and loud. What about their mystery weapon? Unknown asset remains cloaked. However, Council engineers have been diverting massive energy through the Kion Nexus. Something large is charging. Aisha tapped her chin. Find out what it is. Quietly. As always, Morpheus replied. Shiren joined her, eyes on the map. If they're stalling, it's not for effect. Something else is happening. We should escalate. No. Not yet, Aisha said. We don't escalate for noise. We respond to substance. Let them think we're unprepared. Shiren frowned. And if they launch early? Aisha's voice softened. Then we end it quickly. Across the galaxy, the council convened in a crystal chamber, bathed in pale light. Chancellor Velker stood before a ring of watching elders, his arms raised. They mock us. They laugh at our warnings. A wrinkled Lori then priest floated forward. And yet you provoke. Will you destroy them, or inflame them? Velker's eyes narrowed. They are a contagion. We shall burn them clean. Back aboard Eidolon, Aisha stood again, motioning toward the display. Zoom out. Show the galactic web. The screen obeyed, revealing the wider galactic neighborhood. Trade routes, satellite colonies, minor species territories. Human outposts glowed green. Council territories blazed in crimson. Velker's playing to his council, she said. He thinks fear will force unity. His propaganda is already seeding dissent, Morpheus noted. 4 council-aligned species have filed formal objections. 2 have begun transmitting privately to our diplomats. Aisha smiled. Typical. When humans do nothing, others start asking why. Morpheus paused. One more item, Commander. A priority ping from Saturn's outer relay. Encrypted chatter suggests Council intelligence agents are searching for the key protocol. Shiren stiffened. That's an Earth legend. A failsafe buried under Olympus Mons. Aisha's expression turned serious. Which doesn't exist. But if they think it does, we can make it real. She faced the display, where the crimson line of Council ships crawled ever closer. Let them march, she said. They're expecting an army. They're getting theater. The lights dimmed behind her, the black hole's event horizon curling like a predator at rest. War had been declared. Pity the ones who thought that mattered. The first dreadnought arrived early. Not by much, 19 hours ahead of projection, but enough to raise eyebrows. It coasted into the outer fringe of the Sagan expanse, heavy with ceremonial armor plating, trailing a beacon pulse in every known language. This is the will of the Galactic Council. Prepare for compliance or elimination. Eidolon Station did not reply. Commander Aisha Tran stood at the helm of Tactical Ops, eyes locked on the projected model of the alien vessel. Council-built, Arcanex design. Sleek, intimidating, but functionally archaic. No adaptive shielding. No quantum maneuvering. Not even a signal-baffling hull. They really are committing to the bit, she muttered. Beside her, senior analyst Yuan Saito squinted at the data feed. This one's the Virtue's Fong. Warship by title, transport by gut. It's carrying diplomats in one wing and a mobile shrine in the other. Aisha snorted. War tourism. Shiren Kim entered the room with a fresh update. New pings. Council subnet chatter intercepted by our long-range tap at Vega 6. They're referencing something called Key Protocol Prime. No public data exists under that tag. They think we have a planet killer. Aisha tilted her head. We don't. Shiren raised an eyebrow. Exactly. A slow grin crept onto Aisha's face. Let's give them something to look for. She turned toward Lex, Eidolon's embedded espionage engineer. Lex didn't talk much. She wore her hair buzzed, her hands gloved in neural thread mesh. When she tapped into the system, the room's ambient light flickered. Council comms traffic is now being looped through a false archive server buried on Europa's GhostNet, she said, her voice flat and clear. We're planting breadcrumbs. Protocol Prime is now officially a Threat Level 0 classified weapon hidden on the wreckage of the Icarus Reborn. That ship doesn't exist, Yuan noted. Lex shrugged. Now it does. Morpheus's hologram flickered to life. Incoming message from the Council vessel. Audio only. Aisha nodded. Velker's voice arrived, less theatrical than before but still thick with arrogance. Human command. We are in proximity. Surrender your AI cores and military infrastructure, and your civilians shall be permitted relocation. Refuse, and we unleash judgment. Aisha tapped a response. Chancellor Velker, she said evenly, we have received your message. Due to a high volume of threats, your declaration is currently number 78 in our inbox. We expect to review it by next fiscal cycle. She cut the line. Yuan burst into laughter. Even Morpheus's expressionless avatar pulsed brighter. But beneath the sarcasm, tension coiled. Because in a hidden node beneath Eidolon's communication spires, something else stirred. The intercepted chatter hadn't just mentioned key protocol prime, it referenced activation coordinate. And those coordinates were real. Aisha called an emergency meeting in the lower-tier war table, far from official logs and polished brass. She pointed to the encrypted data string Lex pulled from the Council's comms. These aren't fake, she said. They're pulling numbers from our oldest archives, deep-set fallback codes. We scrubbed these after the Exodus era. Someone dug them back up. Lex nodded. Old enough to be mistaken for myth. Or bait. Or someone planted them, Sharon said. Years ago. Aisha leaned on the table. Whatever they think Protocol Prime is, they're terrified. That means we can weaponize the idea of it, without firing a shot. What if they realize it's fiction? Yuan asked. Aisha's eyes glinted. Then we write the next chapter. Across the stars, in a crystalline tower aboard the Virtue's Fong, Velker studied the intercepted replies. She mocked us, he said flatly. His second-in-command, a scaled Volnari named Trexel, bristled. They haven't even deployed their defense fleet. It's like they're waiting for us to punch ourselves out. Velker closed his eyes. That's exactly what they're doing. He turned to the data cradle behind him, where a schematic pulsed slowly, a massive energy array hidden beneath the Kion expanse, known only to Council inner circles. Halo's Gate. A weapon built not to destroy worlds, but to erase stations from time. How long until we're within relay range of the Kion Nexus? Velker asked. 72 hours, Trexel answered. Weapon is nearly at charge capacity. Then prepare the key, Velker whispered. If they will not submit to fire, we'll cast them into silence. Back on Eidolon, Lex was already ahead of them. She had cracked into the Council's side channel, a fragile encryption hub running on older Arcanex architecture. A vulnerability ripe for the taking. They're charging something big, she said, eyes locked on cascading glyphs. Power spikes along their hidden fleet routes suggest a singularity array. And something called Halo's Gate. Sounds churchy, Yuan said. It's worse, Lex replied. It's surgical. Designed to collapse a space-time vector around a target. Not mass destruction, pure erasure. Like we never existed. The room fell quiet. Aisha broke it. Then we steal it. Sharon blinked. You want to hijack the weapon? No, Aisha said. I want to own it. She spun the map around. If we can get someone inside the targeting lattice, Morpheus can take control from the inside. But we'll need a stealth launch, something off-record. Yuan tapped a console. We've got a relay ship refueling at Titan's shadow. Cloak capable. Civilian profile. Aisha smiled. Perfect. Get me a team. As the Council's grand fleet trundled toward its supposed triumph, humanity didn't mobilize fleets or drop propaganda. They just vanished from sight. Silently, Eidolon began pivoting. From defense to acquisition. From myth to misdirection. And the real war began, not with fire but with fiction. Space around the Kion expanse shimmered with synthetic gravity distortions. In the heart of that warped region hovered the Council's ace. Halo's Gate, a structure vast enough to eclipse moons, sleek like a blade plunged into black. It pulsed with a silent hunger, its lattice arms cycling energy between singularity cores. And it had no idea it was being watched. From the shadows beyond its sensor sweep, a small ship floated, gray, unmarked, purpose-built for vanishing. The cicada wasn't a war vessel. It was a whisper with engines. Inside, 4 humans sat in dim red light. At the helm, Lieutenant Mara Cade checked the sensor screen, her breathing steady. She'd piloted through asteroid storms and drifted past collapsing stars, but this was something else, dancing between gravitational needles. Beside her, tech specialist Juno Reyes hunched over a neural rig, eyes glassy from interface feedback. "Council signal net is thick," she muttered. "They're bouncing encrypted commands through a rotating mirror relay. I can thread a spoof, but if I blink too long, we're cooked." A grunt came from the rear. "Don't blink then," said Sergeant Reich, ex-Special Forces, a walking bulk of muscle and quiet rage. He cleaned his sidearm like they were prepping for a street brawl instead of a silent break-in. Mara turned to their 4th. The quietest of them, the reason this whole mission had a shot. Dr. Elliot Shaw, civilian systems theorist, soft-spoken, eyes like winter rain. "You sure you can hijack a weapon built by 9 alien species?" she asked. He nodded once. "No. But I can confuse it long enough for Morpheus to slide in." They didn't need full control. They needed a moment, just one sliver of access to reroute command lines. That was enough to turn the galaxy's most feared weapon into a bluff. Maybe even a bargaining chip. Mara leaned forward. "Bring us in slow. We ride their maintenance pulse. They open the hatch every 12 minutes to vent radiation." 12 minutes, Reich muttered. "Luxury." The cicada inched forward, slipping into the thermal exhaust trail of a Council maintenance skiff. Their hull matched the emissions, the signature, even the dust scratches. As the skiff passed through Halo's gate's outer vent gate, the human ship piggybacked in, unseen. Inside the gate's internal ring, the architecture shifted, white and silver alloy, humming with residual energy. Patterns traced along the walls like veins, feeding the core beneath them. Docking clamps seized them with mechanical precision. "We're in," Mara whispered. They moved fast. Juno took lead, jamming security drones with pulse scramblers. Reich covered blind spots. Elliot navigated using schematics stolen from half-buried Council archive. Every corridor hummed with silent danger, motionless cameras, wall sockets lined with anti-intrusion spores, systems designed to fry the minds of trespassers. And still, no alarms. Morpheus's voice crackled through their implant. "Maintain course. I have partial override on internal surveillance. You are walking in shadow." They reached the primary lattice control chamber in 9 minutes. It was vast, a cathedral of wires and light. Suspended in its center was the targeting brain, a sphere of unknown matter, rotating inside an anti-gravity stasis field. Around it, control pylons pulsed. Juno plugged in. "Give me 10 seconds. "Make it 8, Reich said. His rifle was already up. "Don't rush me. This thing's like threading a needle underwater while someone's shaking the pool." Elliot stepped to the stasis ring. He pulled a neural strand from his belt, linked it to his temple, and reached toward the interface. The second his fingers touched the panel, the room reacted. A low harmonic tremor shivered through the floor. Lines of code erupted on the control walls, glyphs folding into new configurations. Council protocols came alive. And then, silence. Elliot's body locked in place. His mouth opened slightly, as if trying to form a word, but only static escaped. "Shaw." Mara moved closer. Morpheus broke in again. "I have partial control. Dr. Shaw has connected his mind to the gate's prime loop. Council architecture resists logic. It communicates in symbol and emotion." "Is he alive?" Mara demanded. "Yes. But he is translating." Juno's eyes darted across her interface. "He's giving us a backdoor. Just opened a comm ghost line through the primary lattice. I can reroute targeting." Mara's heart pounded. "Do it." Juno tapped furiously. "I'm embedding false data. New coordinates. New weapon protocols. I'm making it look like the system is aligning to Earth's orbital shield, but the actual energy will discharge into deep space. Will the Council know? They'll think they've aimed it. And then Elliot moved. He gasped once, then collapsed to his knees. His voice was quiet, but sharp. They see us. Who? Mara knelt beside him. Elliot blinked. The core, it isn't just a system. It's watching. Not intelligent. Not sentient. But aware, like a mirror that remembers faces. Morpheus chimed in. They've activated trace verification. You must leave. Now. Reich swung around. Go! The team sprinted back through the corridor, dodging blinking sensors as security routines slowly came online. Mara could feel the gate beginning to wake. Extraction path blocked, Morpheus said. Redirecting. They dove into a maintenance chute, tumbling into a lower ring. Alarms began echoing. Red lights. Metallic groans. Reich blew the sidewall with a charge. They burst through piping into the skiff bay. Juno slammed the Cicada's systems awake. Launch window in 30 seconds. Mara shoved Elliot into the seat and gripped the pilot stick. Outside, Council drones began swarming. Hold on, she growled. The Cicada blasted from the ring, cloak flickering. Anti-kinetic fields crackled as enemy fire scattered behind them. The gate didn't pursue. It just watched. Back on Eidolon Station, Aisha stood before the command map as data poured in. Did it work? Sharen asked. Morpheus answered. The Council believes the weapon is charged and locked on Earth. They do not know it will fire into the void. They now treat Protocol Prime as active reality. Aisha smiled coldly. They brought a god to the battlefield. She turned away. Now we teach them how belief becomes fear. 3 days. That was how long the Council's fleet hovered just beyond the Sagan expanse. 3 days since the Cicada had slipped away from Halo's gate, leaving the Council scrambling to explain a weapon they didn't understand, charging for a target that didn't exist. Now, the quiet tension of the past 72 hours began to fray at the edges. Commander Aisha Tran sat in her war room aboard Eidolon Station, her eyes fixed on the digital map. The fleet was still out there, but they weren't advancing. Instead, they rotated, an orbit, a hold, a waiting game. The Council was calculating, recalibrating. And in their own way, they were testing humanity's resolve. Do they believe the weapon is real? The thought rattled in her mind. If they did, they were about to make a dangerous misstep. If they didn't, well, they might as well have played their hand. It won't hold forever, Aisha said to no one in particular. Her voice was flat, a touch of resignation buried beneath the practicality. Eventually, they'll reach the end of their patience. Lex's voice cracked through the silence of the room. We've planted enough paranoia. They're dividing into factions now, each vying for a piece of the truth. But they're also scrambling for answers. They're, how do you put it? Like blind men trying to figure out who's holding the knife. Aisha chuckled without mirth. One way to describe it. She turned to face her console as a new transmission came through, a secure relay from the Virtues Fong. The Council had opened a comm line. For the first time, they were addressing humanity directly, unfiltered. Aisha didn't need to be told who was on the other end. Velker's deep voice came through the speakers. It was calm now, without the bluster that had marked their earlier exchanges. Commander Tran, I find myself curious. Are you prepared to sacrifice your people? Are you willing to send them to die, simply to keep the illusion of your asterisk, Protocol Prime, alive? Aisha's eyes narrowed, but she let the words hang for a moment before responding. We've never asked for war, she said slowly, her tone even. We asked for the truth. We've provided it. The weapon you believe is aimed at Earth is not. Velker's laugh crackled through the line. Your threats are amusing, but ultimately irrelevant. Humanity's bravado doesn't scare us, Commander. You cannot maintain this charade forever. Aisha leaned back in her chair, fingers steepled. Are you willing to risk it? She could almost hear the sharp intake of Velker's breath on the other end. He was calculating. It was in the brief pause before his voice returned. Your game ends here, Commander. There will be no further parley. We are coming, and we will break you. Aisha's smile was tight, cold. Come then. We'll see whose bluff holds. She cut the line before Velker could retort. Shiren Kim was at her side, already pulling up new intelligence feeds. The Virtue's Fang is beginning a slow advance toward Earth. They're using a secondary fleet to mask their trajectory. Still too cautious, Aisha murmured. We need to force their hand. Morpheus chimed in, his synthetic voice a dry whisper in the comms. The Council has activated Halo's Gate, Commander. They are preparing a real-time calibration for the weapon. If they're certain of its power, they will fire. Aisha's heart rate spiked for a split second. But only for a second. She had prepared for this. The trick was to maintain control, to guide the narrative. They won't fire yet. Not until they're certain they've broken us, she said aloud, more to herself than to anyone else. They think we're vulnerable. They think the weapon is real. And they're going to make a move that will show just how much they believe it. We've pushed them into a corner, Shiren observed, fingers tapping quickly on the data screen. If they strike first, they risk exposing the lie. If they wait too long, we might outlast them. Either way, they're going to panic. Aisha turned her attention back to the map. The fleet was moving now, their slow advance indicative of one last, desperate attempt at reconnaissance. The pressure is on, she said, pressing her lips together. But we can't let them move freely. Lex, how soon can we pull another stunt? Lex's response was immediate. I've tapped into their subcom relay. We're ready to flood their communications with false signal bursts. It'll jam them long enough for us to push a real pulse back at them. Good. Aisha's eyes gleamed with a cold, calculating light. If we can't force them into a mistake, we'll make them believe one. Consider it done, Lex replied. Aisha stood, her mind working through the next few moments in perfect clarity. They had one chance to make the Council realize their mistake, one shot at breaking their resolve. And she wasn't about to waste it. She moved toward the command chair. The tension was palpable now, the weight of the decision bearing down on her. The Council was almost within striking distance of Earth, their weapons still a twisted promise. But there was one piece of information they had yet to grasp. Aisha's voice was low but resolute. We'll hit them where it hurts. We'll leak data, the real stuff. Proof that the key protocol prime is a misdirect. And we'll make sure it leaks just as their fleet is in range. Just when they're about to fire. Shiren's fingers paused mid-tap. You're going to give them everything? No, Aisha said, her voice hard. I'm going to give them exactly what they need to stop themselves, and then we'll watch them squirm as they try to figure out which direction to run. The room quieted. Each person knew what was at stake now. The lie had been spun, and now they were about to unravel it. Out beyond the Sagan expanse, the Council fleet moved forward. They had crossed the line between doubt and certainty. They thought they had humanity cornered. But the game was never about force. It was about control of the narrative. And Aisha Tran was ready to rewrite the ending. End of Chapter 4. Aisha Tran stood before the holographic map, watching as the Council's fleet made its final push toward Earth. The readings were clear. The Virtue's Fang and its escort ships were accelerating, their weapons primed, their trajectory set. They were nearly within range to launch their first strike. It was time. Are we ready? Aisha's voice was low, purposeful. She didn't need to ask. She already knew the answer. But this wasn't just about the plan. It was about the moment. Shiren Kim didn't look up from her console. Data burst is cued. The real signal, the one they'll believe. All coordinates locked. Final prep on our side, Lex? Aisha turned her head toward the comm station. Lex was seated, fingers moving like lightning across the controls. His face remained impassive, but there was something in the set of his jaw, the almost imperceptible tension in his posture. He wasn't a man to show fear, but this was different. This was all on him. Pulse will be fired on your mark. I've patched it into their command relay. Their tactical units won't even notice it's coming from a human source until it's too late. Aisha nodded. And the council? Lex looked up for a brief moment. They're walking into a trap. I've tied everything back to the core protocols. It'll hit them like a thunderclap. The comm line pinged suddenly. Aisha's attention snapped to the incoming transmission. It was from Velker. His voice, now heavy with tension and disbelief, crackled through the speakers. Commander Tran, we are giving you one last chance to back down. The weapon is calibrated and our fleet is aligned. Your falsehoods have stretched long enough. Stand down, or the Council will take what's rightfully ours. Aisha didn't flinch. She had expected the ultimatum. The question was how long they could hold up the illusion. I'm not backing down, Velker, she said. Your lies have been exposed. The weapon you think you have? It's a shadow. A shadow. Velker's voice turned icy. You play dangerous games, Commander. You will regret this. The Council doesn't fear humans. No, Aisha said, her voice cutting. But you will fear what they can do when they're cornered. There was a moment of stunned silence on the other end. Velker seemed to realize something, but it was too late. Aisha turned away from the comms screen. Execute. Lex didn't hesitate. He punched the sequence, and a single pulse of energy surged through Eidolon Station's relay system. It jumped, bounced through a series of encryption layers, and then shot into the heart of the Council's command network, distorting and amplifying the false signal they had planted. It was a masterstroke, information tailored to trigger their worst fears. It was designed to force their hand. And it was perfectly timed. As the pulse blasted through their systems, the Virtue's Fong and its fleet hesitated, caught in the web of a real-time signal flare that they believed to be an internal system failure. The encrypted data flooded the Council's command center, revealing a complete misalignment in their protocols. Protocol Prime was compromised. In the heart of their fleet, the pulse caused immediate panic. Officers scrambled to make sense of the data flood, unable to discern the truth from the lies they'd been fed. The Virtue's Fong itself seemed to shudder as systems malfunctioned. Tactical screens flashed red, alarms screamed. The entire fleet had been frozen in confusion, unable to proceed. Looks like they bought it, Sharen muttered, her eyes glued to the screens. Aisha's gaze remained fixed on the map, watching as the Council's formation began to splinter. She could already see their hesitation. The fleet was faltering, their weapons systems in a state of disarray. The illusion was holding. They were questioning everything, every order, every signal, every piece of data that had been fed to them. But even now, Aisha knew they couldn't afford to let up. Velker would recalibrate, he would shift tactics. It's not over yet, Aisha said, her tone calm but sharp. Hold the line. If they recover, we hit them again. Just as she spoke, a new signal came through, a low, almost guttural tone, one that had never come through their channels before. Morpheus's voice flickered in. The Virtue's Fong has initiated a self-repair sequence. They are regaining control of their systems faster than anticipated. Aisha's eyes narrowed. No surprises. They're on the clock. They have seconds. Pulse 2 is ready, Lex said, his voice tinged with urgency. Do it. Now. Another pulse shot through the comm system, but this time it was not just a misdirect. It was an overload. A calculated burst designed to cripple their fleet's internal communications. The Virtue's Fong and its supporting vessels were now blind, isolated in the void. They had no way to coordinate, no way to issue orders. They were scattered, without leadership. Aisha watched as the Council fleet tried to regroup. But the chaos was already in motion. They had lost their cohesion, and the gap had opened wide. Now, she said, her voice rising with authority. Let's finish this. The fleet sprang into action. From hidden positions just beyond their detection radius, humanity's retaliatory force moved in. The ships weren't massive, they weren't fleets, but they were precise, each one acting as a cutting-edge spearhead of human ingenuity. Tactical strikes, perfect in their timing, tore through the enemy's scattered vessels. No mercy. No hesitation. The Council's response was feeble. Fractured commands filtered through scrambled systems, but it was too late. Human ships wove in and out of the fray, striking with the precision of a storm. The Council was now a beast that couldn't find its feet. Aisha's heart raced, but her hand was steady. She knew they had to break the Council's will, not just its fleet. It wasn't about destroying them, it was about making them see the truth. And then, in the midst of the chaos, Velker's voice broke through once more. "You've won this battle, Commander. But you cannot erase what the Council is. We are eternal." Aisha's lips curled into a faint smile. "Perhaps. But even the eternal can be taught to fear the unknown." As the last of the enemy ships fell into the silence of space, Aisha turned her gaze back to the map. The mission was over. The fleet was broken. The illusion had held. Humanity had struck the final blow. And for the first time in centuries, the Council was not the victor.